Hi guys, and welcome to Fog of Gaming. The 7th update of the PC 1.0 version of Playerunknown's Battlegrounds introduced new graphical changes to our favorite sights and scopes. These attachments affect our aim in many ways, so we need to be familiar with these changes if we want to maintain our accuracy when using them. Today we will take an in-depth look at each of the commonly used scopes so that you know exactly what to expect when you find them in-game. One of the most noticeable changes that the 7th update applied to the scopes and sights is the parallax effect. This means that when you quickly move your mouse while aiming down the sights, the reticle of the scope will look like it's trying to keep up with your movements. There will be a slight delay before the reticle is completely centered. It makes switching between different targets more difficult for inexperienced players, because they will usually have to wait for the reticle to be in the center of the target before they take the shot. Another important effect that can be seen with high magnification scopes is the color distortion. Your scope will now look similar to what you would see in real life. And while it does make the experience feel more authentic, it also makes it harder to spot enemies. At really long ranges, the heads of the character can look small enough for these effects to cover them. This means that you will have to be more thorough when checking your surroundings with these high magnification scopes, like when you're looking for enemies through windows, for example. Another new feature of the high magnification scopes is the black transition effect that you now see when you ADS with your 8x scope, for example. The problem with this is that it now takes longer before you can aim at your enemy's head. Personally, I feel that it slows down the game for no reason. I would like to know how you guys feel about this, so please let me know in the comments. The parallax effect and the distortion effects vary depending on the scope, and you will get to see all of them for yourself in this video. All of the magnification scopes have adjusted perspective, so you will be able to see more of the environment with each scope. It is designed for close range combat, and that is why it has a low magnification. The magnification value isn't written beside its name, and the actual magnification depends on your field of view. At the maximum 103 field of view, aiming down sights with the holographic sight will actually magnify your view by 180%. If you hold your breath while aiming down sights, then your magnification reaches all the way up to 250%. Unlike the old holographic sight, this new version has a very bright reticle. You can reduce this glow by scrolling your mouse wheel down. The details on the frame of the scope are better rendered as well. This change makes it easier to acquire targets from across the street with the holographic sight, but the drawback is that the frame of the sight blocks your view significantly. This is a noticeable disadvantage because the holographic sight is meant to be used in close range firefights, and you should be using your peripheral vision to see enemies who are coming from behind corners who aren't in the center of your crosshairs. The red dot sight is based on the Sightmark Sure Shot Reflex sight, and it's considered to be the best close range sight in the game. If you compare the old and the new version of the red dot sight, then we can see that the actual dot is much thicker now. Most people prefer attaching this to an assault rifle or to another close range weapon. Just like the holographic sight, it has a minimal magnification. At 103 degrees field of view, you get a 180% or 1.8 times zoom when you aim down sights with the red dot sight. And you get 250% when you hold your breath. You can also adjust the brightness of the reticle, and this will make the dot a lot smaller and also a lot less blurry. That being said, the reason why this is a very popular sight is because there is very little of the sight's frame that's actually blocking your view. You will still be able to see enemies coming from behind corners, which means that your sight itself won't be blocking them. When it comes to close quarters battles, it's definitely a good idea to swap out your holographic sight for a red dot sight. In fact, it's also preferable to use this over the 2x scope. The red dot sight doesn't just have a significantly smaller frame, but it can also achieve nearly the same level of zoom as the 2x scope if you hold your breath while aiming down sights. Before we go over to the magnification scopes, we need to talk about the reflex sight. This is not a custom sight that you will find lying around on the map, but it is the default sight when you pick up the Crossbow. It has a similar frame to the red dot sight, but instead of a plain red dot, you will have a set of dots and a rangefinder. If you line up a person's height on the vertical line, then you can pick the reticle appropriate for your target, depending on how much of the vertical line that covers your target. If your enemy fits between the bar that is marked as 5 and the lowest bar on the line, then he is 50 meters away and you should be using the second dot. If he fits between the 10 bar and the lowest bar on the line, then he is 100 meters away and you will need to use the third dot to aim at your target. If he is 200 meters away, then he will fit between the 20 bar and the lowest bar, so you need to aim with the fourth dot. It's a very handy tool, especially because of the limited effective range and the slow speed of the crossbow itself. The sight can be replaced with both the red dot and the holographic sights, but that is a bad idea because you will lose the range finding tools. We will now move on to the available scopes in the game, starting with the 2x scope. It gives a 200% magnification if you have your field of view set to 80, but it will actually magnify objects by 300% if your field of view is set to 103. The real-life aim point, comp and 2 sight that the 2x scope was based on doesn't have any magnification, so it was definitely altered to fit the game. You might think that this scope does not have any range finding capabilities because of the simple nature of this reticle, but actually it does have it. A target standing at 100 meters away will fit perfectly between the top and the bottom edges of the outer circle. A target standing 200 meters away will fit between the center dot and the outer edges of the circle. At 300 meters, the width of a target will be obscured by the center dot. This will allow you to zero in on your enemies more quickly and accurately fire your shots. Just like with the sights, you can use the mouse wheel to make the reticle brighter or dimmer. It might be a good idea to replace your holographic sights with this scope if you need an option for mid-range fights in Miramar, for example. In Erangel, the green reticle can be a disadvantage because of the grass and the trees. Even if you can adjust the brightness of your reticle, it will still be harder to see. In Miramar, the green reticle is actually more visible than the beige colored background. Comparing the 2x scope to the old version, the new version of the 2x scope allows you to see much more inside the scope than before. This is thanks to the change in perspective. The frame also looks much thinner now, so it doesn't block as much of the area around the center of your scope than it used to. The holographic sight can have nearly the same zoom as the 2x scope if you hold your breath, but it doesn't have any range finding capabilities. The 4x ACOG scope is one of the most useful scopes in the game. The frame of the scope covers more of your peripheral vision than the 2x scope, so it's definitely not suitable for short range combat. The previous updates changed the 4x scope in many ways. Aside from being able to see more of the environment within the scope, the 4x now has a different reticle depending on what weapon is being used. It is very important to understand how this reticle works, because you can no longer zero in on your targets with the 4x scope. You will need to use the range finding tools on each reticle to accurately shoot at your enemies from longer ranges. Each reticle has different ways of measuring the distance. The 4x scope is definitely a reliable option to your inventory, and it is compatible with more weapons than the 8x scope. The reticle of the 4x scope for 5.56mm weapons consists of a chevron, a reverse V shape in the middle of the scope, and a graded line below it. There are numbers listed beside the grading line that will help you determine how far your enemy is and how to aim at him. For example, you will notice that the part of the graded line and the chevron are glowing. If it fits half of a player who is standing, then he is 100 meters away. If the glowing part of the reticle fits the full body height of an enemy, then it means he is 200 meters away. The width of the player will match the width of the chevron if your enemy is 300 meters away. If the width of the player matches the width of the horizontal line to the left of the number 4, then your enemy is 400 meters away. Each line below that will represent an additional 100 meters. That is why the number 6 is located 2 lines after the one besides number 4. While these range finding mechanics work the same way for all 5.56mm weapons, the right way to aim will vary. This is because of each 5.56mm gun has its own bullet speed and effective ranges, so you will have to compensate for the bullet drop and the range in different ways. The reticle of the 4x scope for the AKM, DP28, Groza and S12K is slightly different compared to the reticle for the 5.56mm weapons. Instead of a chevron, you get a circle that is similar to the one that you get with the 2x scope. The only difference is that this circle is not complete for a 4x scope. A bottom arc was removed in order to fit a graded line that runs downward. The numbers to the right of the line are also different, and they represent 300, 500 and 700 meter marks, and they work in the same way as the markings of the 5.56 reticle. If your target is 100 meters away, the width of his torso will fit the width of the circle. If he is 200 meters away, then his standing height will fit the glowing line and the center of the dot in the middle of the circle. The last reticle for the 4x scope is used by the Kar 98K, M24, AWM, SKS, MK14, UMP9 and the Vector. Instead of a chevron or circle, the reticle is a complete cross. Below the center there are a set of lines that will help you to find your range, but it's a little bit tricky, because it does not function in the same way as the lines from the other reticles. If your enemy is 100 meters away, then the width of the glowing red cross will match the width of your enemy's shoulders. If your enemy is 200 meters away, then the height of the cross will now mark 1/2 of your enemy's body. To make sure that your opponent is 300 meters away, then the second to the lowest horizontal line must match the shoulder width of your target. At 400 meters, your target's height will match the full height of the center cross. At 500 meters, your target's shoulders will match the lowest horizontal line on the reticle. The VSS has its own 4x scope, and it cannot be replaced by any other custom sight or scope. It is based on a PSO1 scope in real life. The frame covers less of your horizontal vision compared to the other 4x scopes. The reticle consists of one middle chevron, 2 extra chevrons beneath it, and a set of range-finding marks below these chevrons. The range-finding works by aligning your target's standing or crouching height to the vertical lines above each number. Each vertical line has 2 diagonal lines intersecting it. The upper line denotes the standing height, while the lower line denotes the crouching height. For example, if your standing target fits the vertical line above number 3, then it means that your target is 300 meters away. This means that you will have to aim at your enemy using the lowest chevron. Since there are only 3 chevrons, you will have to imagine a 4th one if your target happens to be standing 400 meters away. This scope makes aiming with the VSS much easier. Given that the VSS has a very low effective range and bullet speed, you will need to master the range finding mechanics of this scope to be effective. The 8x scope is based on the Leopold Mark 8 scope in real life, and in Playerunknown's Battlegrounds it was redesigned in the update 7. The frame is now much smaller, so you will have more peripheral vision. You will be able to see much more on the left side than on the right side because of the knob that will block the environment on the right. More importantly, the view radius of the scope is slightly smaller, but it is worth noting that you will no longer see as much of the inner wall of the scope. This means that it's much easier to find and acquire targets with the new 8x scope. The reticle has also slightly changed because of the circle that surrounded the center dot is now gone. Now, with this scope you will have to fully rely on its mil dots to find your range. Thankfully, it still retains the variable zoom function so that you can zoom in or out as you see fit. Range finding is quite tricky with the 8x scope. If your enemy's head fits the center dot and the first mil dot around it, then your enemy is about 100 meters away. If your enemy is 200 meters away, his whole height should fit between the center dot and the last mil dot. If your enemy's shoulder fits the first mil dot to the left and to the right, then he is 300 meters away, and he is 400 meters away when his standing height fits between the second upper dot and the second lower dot. A standing enemy who is 500 meters away will fit between the first upper dot and the second lower dot. If your center red dot fits just inside your enemy's head, then he is 600 meters away, and at 700 meters your target's standing height should fit between the first upper and first lower mil dots. The 8x scope has many advantages over the 4x scope, and there are many reasons to pick it up, especially if you have a sniper rifle. The 8x scope can also achieve a 4x zoom by scrolling your mouse wheel down while aiming. Unlike the 4x scope, the 8x can be zeroed in for more accurate shots. Thanks to the 7th update, the 8x does not block as much as your vision as before, so it has become a more viable pickup over the 4x scope. But you will have to deal with the black transition effect. These were all the changes that were applied to the scopes and sights after the 7th update. Let me know in the comments what you think about these new scopes, and if you like this video then you know what to do. This was Fog of Gaming, thanks for watching, and I will see you in Battlegrounds.